I'm Andrew O'Hare, Executive Editor of Salon, and it's my great pleasure today to welcome to our Salon studio in New York novelist Don Winslow. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
I would describe you as one of the signature, crime novelists or popular novelists of our age, but I don't know if you even like those labels. Like we could just say writer. I don't.
Yeah, writer's good. I've had so many labels, and most of them have been negative. They tell me what I'm not. You're not a bestseller author. You're not an airport author. You're not this. Cult writer, I think, was my favorite.
Cult writer, okay.
Label over the years.
But it's a friendly cult. It's not like the cult, the alleged cult. Let's be careful about the terminology here. Associated with someone else with your first name, whom we might talk about later.
Yeah, we could drop the alleged. I'm comfortable with
that. Don, your new novel, and you say your last novel. We will get to that
it's the because truth, Andrew.
I kind of hope that's false, but your new novel is City in Ruins, which is the conclusion of a trilogy that began with City on Fire, published just a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. But I understand you've been working on this trilogy for a long time.
30 years.
That's incredible. What took you so long?
Just lazy, I guess, Andrew.
You haven't been doing anything else?
No, nothing else. 23 other books, I think, kept me. I don't want to be glib with you. To give you a serious answer, it was tough to do. What I was trying to do was to take the Greek and Roman classics and use all those characters and stories and themes, but write a completely modern, contemporary crime epic, because I'm a crime fiction writer. That's my beloved genre, mm-hmm. So it took a while to do that successfully. I failed at it a lot, and so I'd set that down, I'd do another book, and then I'm between books, and I'd go, let's pick that up again and try it. And then I'd fail again, and so this process repeated itself for 3 decades.
That's such an interesting observation. I feel like that one of the things that any writer in any genre, I write journalism, not fiction, but the importance of understanding failure. I think it's probably true that every successful writer has to go through periods of not getting it right.
Yeah.
And learning from that.
I would say more days than not, And I think, when you're a young writer, that feels crushing, but you get a little experience under your belt, you've done a few laps around that pool, you kind of realize, Tuesday I kind of sucked, but just keep at it, because I think you have to go through sometimes 10 or 20 bad pages to get to that one good one.
This is this trilogy is, and it's not like a secret. You just said that you had these literary models. It actually, reading City on Fire, the first one, it actually took me a minute while reading the book, because it is a very engrossing story told in the present tense, beginning I think around 1987. Is that
exactly,
about right? Yeah. On a beach in Rhode Island, and it feels like this very specific setting. And it took me a minute to be like, oh, okay, this is a story about one guy from this one gang steals a somewhat mysterious, beautiful woman from a guy in another gang, and this precipitates a devastating and destructive conflict. Where have I heard that story before?
Well, you might have heard it in this little thing called the Iliad, but I will tell you that a very similar incident to that happened in New England between the Irish and Italian mobs that did launch a 10-year gang war that ended up costing about 40 lives. So when I read the Iliad, I already knew this story because it was part of my youth.
That's fantastic. So you were having the art imitating life, except the art was 3,000 years old or something.
Yeah, exactly. That's
fantastic. That's a great story. And the story, you're following this one guy, Danny Ryan?
Danny
right?
Ryan.
Yeah. From Providence, Rhode Island, where the story starts, to LA in the second book, primarily Hollywood, basically, the movie industry, and then Vegas, which is where a lot of City in Ruins takes place. To some extent, I see the pattern. You could look at Martin Scorsese films and say, okay, the gangsters tended to go in that direction. Mm-hmm. But why those 3 cities in particular?
Providence and Rhode Island, because that's where I grew up, and I wanted a small environment where all of these people knew each other and maybe even related before the war breaks out. Okay, and that felt ideal because I could just walk out my door, right, and listen, and I was there. Hollywood, really, and it took me a while, because in the Aeneid, and Danny Ryan is Aeneas, Aeneid goes into a cave. He's shipwrecked in Carthage, and he goes into a cave, and there are murals of the Trojan War. He sees himself, he sees his late wife, his friends, his home. And I thought, okay, what's the contemporary equivalent to that? A movie. Someone making a movie about basically what's in book one. And it just seemed to be fun, frankly, because I've spent some time in Hollywood.
Yes.
To take some of these Rhode Island punks and put them at the craft services table at a Hollywood studio, because they'd be like raccoons, right? They'd never leave. You know, free food and all of that. So that was why Hollywood. Vegas, same thing. At the last half of the Aeneid, Aeneas has to build an empire.
Right.
It took me years. It's embarrassing to figure out what could that empire be in contemporary America. I didn't want to do a drug empire. It felt wrong. It felt nasty. I thought about continuing with a Hollywood empire, but that also felt false and unrealistic. Then it occurred to me, right, like one of those eureka, aha, boy, are you dumb moments, right? Where I went, well, in Las Vegas, if you have the cash, you can build anything you want. They have built Rome there, right?
Indeed,
Caesar's
indeed.
Palace,
Yeah.
Paris, pirate ships, pyramids,
Yeah.
Whatever you want. And when I hit on that, then book 3 started to click.
I really recommend those of you who don't know Don's work or this series. It really is tremendous fun to encounter something that is a crime novel, very, very easy to read. Is that insulting? I hope
Not
Okay.
at all.
Okay. But that if you are the sort of person, as I am, who values like the little literary allusions and stuff, that's there too. And the other thing that's going on here, I think, is some version of a social history.
Yeah.
How important was that for you in constructing this trilogy?
Pretty important. I think, crime writing's a big tent, and there's room for all kinds of different stuff. I'm a historian by education and by inclination. I love history. And so in my books, which is one thing that's made me hard to label, frankly, and has been an issue, that I like getting social history in there, because to me it's interesting. And I often think we underestimate our readers. They think, okay, it's got to be action, 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 action. And I'm saying it doesn't necessarily, right? That we can incorporate these things. And so I was interested in writing about America and about Las Vegas at a particular era, which was when the gangs, the mob had pretty much faded out.
Right.
And corporate America was taking over, and it was the era of the mega hotels, and greed is good, and, the bigger the better. And to me, that was interesting to write about, and I hope interesting to read about.
It's fascinating to read about. Now, Danny Ryan to me is like, you've said that he's Aeneas in some respects.
Yeah.
One of the things that I appreciate about the way you approach him as a character is that I don't know if it's exactly we're in his head at least some of the time, but you're not completely on his side. You're not advocating him as in the way that a lot of crime fiction would, as the hero or the man who he does live by his own moral code, but you're not necessarily saying it's
Exactly
a good
that I
one
accept
all the
it.
time.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting choice. Like you have a little bit of distance from him the whole time.
Yeah, look, my job, I think, is to take the reader into a world that she or he could not necessarily otherwise enter. Or maybe help them see a little differently, because I do have a lot of readers who are criminals. I guess I'm very big in prisons, Andrew.
Excellent.
Yeah, so to do that, I have to look at the world through that character's eyes. I approach it, I guess, the way maybe a method actor would approach taking a role, I'm not interested in the morality of it. I'm not trying to be objective. I'm trying to be subjective when I'm typing. Now, I might have my own moral opinions about what's going on, but I try not to, inject those into that point of view.
There's a technique that you use, and I'm sure this isn't completely original, but I feel like when you see it in more, it's like self-evidently literary fiction, it gets telegraphed in a different way, where you will move even within a chapter or a couple of pages from one character's perspective to another without announcing that, but will be in one person's point of view and then will shift to another one. There's no narrative voice informing us that that is happening. You don't have signals on the page the way that some writers do, like now we're in person X's head. And it struck me that you can read it and almost not notice this happening. And it must have been difficult or at least interesting to work that out, how to make that work.
Listen, I've never had a writing class, so I don't know what the names of these techniques are. Nobody taught it to me. I think it was kind of instinctual. Again, I'm trying to put the reader into that person's point of view. And what I think is that readers are pretty smart. I don't think we need to hold up a sign that says, now we're in Danny's head, now we're in Allie's head. I think if I can do it skillfully enough, we just go there. A critic one time said, man, you changed the point of view inside of a sentence one time. And I said, yeah, and if I can find a way to change it inside of a word, I will.
It's because it reminds me in some ways of the classic thing that would happen in 19th century fiction, because I don't know, it's a little pretentious, but like Dickens or George Eliot will do that, but they also have this other voice, this hovering UFO who is announcing everything and making ironic commentary, and you don't do that at all. So.
I try not to. I try not to. Listen, sometimes I think of it in film terms, right? Because I think it would be disingenuous for anyone of my generation to say we haven't been influenced by film and television. So I'm not trying to write a movie, but sometimes I'll think, well, maybe I need an establishing shot here, right? Maybe I need to back up and get high and look down at the city of Las Vegas or give a background on a character. But other times I think, no, I want an extreme close-up. And other times I think, no, I want this to be from the POV, the point of view, a film term of that character,
And speaking of that, I know that am I correct that there is a TV adaptation of this series?
You're semi-correct.
Semi-correct. Okay.
It's a film adaptation.
Oh, fantastic. Okay.
They're making 3 films.
And how much can you tell us about this at this point?
Well, what I can tell you is that Danny Ryan's being played by Austin Butler.
No kidding. That's an interesting choice.
Kidding.
Wow.
Yeah. It's funny, so I had just seen Elvis. My wife and I had just watched the film. And then the next day or the day after, my agent called up and said, hey, what do you think about Austin Butler? He wants to do Danny. I went, yeah, great. And then in the interim, I've been watching Masters of the Air.
Yes.
And he's great in that.
Super enjoyable, yeah.
Yeah, intense.
Yes.
Tough to watch, but very, very good, as you would expect from that crew. So, I'm delighted about it. The strike slowed everything down.
Right.
I think we were supposed to go take these guys out on location last summer, and I think that's going to happen this summer. Where I'll take them to the beach that you alluded to, that Danny's lying on in the beginning and all that.
That's it. I assumed it was, but that's an actual location described.
Actual
location. If I went there, I would recognize it pretty much from your...
I hope you would. Yeah. I'll take you there sometime. Come on
That
out.
sounds
Just
great.
Grab
That
the
sounds
train.
great.
I'll get you some decent clam chowder.
There's a lot of discussion about the Rhode Island. I was unfamiliar with the Providence versus Boston clam chowder battle.
Yes, which I triggered much to my downfall. I made some snarky remark. I thought off the record to a reporter at the Boston paper.
Oh, that must have gone down well.
The next night I had to be in Boston. But I was asked about that in Germany. It's very serious. And it was a Q&A.
Clam chowder.
Yeah. You take your clam chowder very serious. Dude, it was a joke, But come on out. I'll take you to the beach.
That sounds fantastic. How do you feel about when, just using a term of art, I don't mean to be value judgment, when you have literary journalists so defined who move into crime fiction? Because I feel like over the course of your career, and maybe even a little bit before that, crime fiction has become cooler. It's become respectable in a way that maybe it didn't used to be.
Right.
And to cite, there's so many examples, but when you have people, take two completely divergent examples, Colson Whitehead or John Banville
Right.
start writing crime novels, like, should they stay in their lanes?
No, listen, man, nobody owns the genre, right? And I'd be the last person in the world to try to close the door behind me, because the door was closed in front of me for a long time, right? So no, my attitude is welcome in. If you can do it well, do it well. Welcome, I'll read it, I'll enjoy it. I hope that you're never going to find me slamming another writer in any way, shape, or form.
Well, you've talked about the fact that the genre has, once upon a time dominated by white guys who wrote these kind of hard-boiled.
Yeah, me. Yeah, yeah.
and it is a lot more diverse.
It
now.
is. Yeah, which is really good. Which is really good. Yeah, look, for a long time, we were looked down on. Right, which I kind of liked. I kind of miss the air.
Being disreputable. Yeah, sure. That's great.
Yeah. But I've said this before. I mean, I had a journalist one time, a very literary journalist, ask me, as a crime fiction writer, do you feel you live in a literary ghetto? And it was not asked in a particularly friendly tone.
Doesn't sound like a friendly question.
And I said, absolutely, and I love my neighborhood. And I think
Dogtown. Yeah.
Dogtown. I think it's been a little bit to our benefit, because I think you get that slight chip on the shoulder, a little bit of an attitude that I think is kind of useful. And I also think that it's been my experience that inside the genre, we tend to be a bit more collegial with each other. We help each other out. It's pretty friendly.
That's cool.
You don't see the kind of backbiting and, rivalries and, that I think you see, kind of elsewhere.
So now we get to talk about the fact that you've said that this is your last novel after, is it going to be 24? I'm unclear on the exact number.
It depends on how you count them. I think it's 26. I'm not
26. Okay. Yeah.
coy with you.
No,
Yeah.
that's cool. So I know that many people will know you, yes, from your social media interventions in politics. You and
Yes.
Your friend Shane Salerno.
Shane Salerno,
got the
my
name right,
agent.
have been doing stuff on social media that's gotten millions of views cumulatively.
300 million.
300 million views. Okay. Well, I know you've sold a lot of books, but probably not 300 million. But
It's in the 295 million. I don't think I've hit 300. Maybe this afternoon.
later, after this goes live,
airs,
for sure.
we're way up.
No
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
So, okay, but why so that was a revelation to you in some ways, I guess. What made you decide to move out of actually writing?
Well, listen, Shane and I've been busy on what used to be Twitter, I guess now is X, and doing, pretty much daily commentary now for quite a few years, since about 2015. And you can do the math on that,
Yes.
right? So it wasn't a revelation, really, Andrew. It was more, again, this volume is sort of, I think, the culmination of my life's work. It's something I've been trying to do for 30 years, and I think, and I finally completed it, and I hope successfully. I'm not the person to judge that. Around the same time, all of this stuff has been happening in this country, what I correctly consider to be a neo-fascist movement in America. Those things coming together now, and thinking, we're 7 months away from an election that I think is going to determine what the world looks like for the next era. That my energies, such as they are, I'm not a young guy, are better spent in that fight. And I just want to focus on that.
And that has to go, I guess I'm asking for an opinion or an evaluation, but that has to go past the question of this one election, doesn't it? Because the problem, I'm sure you're going to tell me that the problem of this election is critical, but the problem in the country is much bigger than what happens in the first week of November.
Well, yes and no. Listen, I think we need to focus on the first week of November, right? That's that old saying, how do you deal with a nest of cobras? You kill the closest one first, okay? We have to win that. All right, I'm not thinking past that now.
Okay.
Okay, let's cross that bridge when we get to that bridge. Okay, right now we have to win that election. period, and that's where my focus is. Then we'll see what the world looks like.
Because it's funny, I feel like in our profession here, the journalism that we do in this room and on this website, we've been compelled to think a lot about, for example, what will the country be like under a second Trump term with the possible, formations that could occur in Congress? What kind of, how will that change our roles?
Sure.
How will that change politics in the country? And you don't want to quite cross that rhetorical bridge.
It's not useful right now to me. Mm-hmm. I'm sure it is to you and what you do. To me, that's not useful right now. I think, I'm focused on the battle, on the fight. I want to win that one, and then let's see where we're at.
So you're really, and you're able to put this down now.
Yes.
Wow, because you just said you're not young, okay, but lots of people continue. You could,
I know.
You could write 10 or 12 more books and still be
could. Look, I've had such a much bigger and better career than I ever thought I'd have, right? Than I'd ever dreamed. It's been fantastic, and I'm grateful for that, truly. I think gratitude, though, is not, I don't want to push it. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to publish just for the sake of publishing or just for the sake of a paycheck. I'll probably always write. I might just write and never do anything with it. Just write because I want to write this or I want to write that. Research, I love researching, and there's a lot of topics I'm interested in, so
Historian,
I love doing
yeah.
that. Yeah. So, I'm never bored. I don't understand how anyone ever, well, in airports, but I don't understand how anyone ever is. There's so much to do, so much to see. I'm not worried about laying on the couch, eating potato chips.
That doesn't seem like your thing, probably. How much, obviously you get a lot of feedback on social media, and I'm sure not all of it is positive. How often do you hear the response from people who have read your books and maybe like them, like communists, go away and stick with what you
every
do?
day.
Every day. Okay,
every day. I call it the shut up and type as opposed to the shut up and dribble factor. Sometimes it gets worse, sometimes a little nastier.
Have you had actual threats?
Oh, yeah. That's common.
Of course you have,
Yeah, that's a common
Happens
thing.
to us every day also.
I'm sure it does, yeah. I don't, listen, most of these people are physical as well as moral cowards.
They're on the couch.
They're on
literally.
the couch in their grandmother's basement.
Possibly, yes.
Yeah.
Possibly the grandmother's basement. Would Danny Ryan have voted for Trump in 2016?
Absolutely not.
Really not? Okay. I was gonna put not a large amount. I was gonna put $3 on that. Maybe he would have. But you don't. No. We can't ask him. But
I'm telling you, man.
Okay.
No, he would not have. He would not have. Look, Danny is a working class Rhode Island guy. Right?
You can't tell me there weren't some working class Rhode Island guys who went there.
I know him.
Yeah.
Not this guy.
Okay.
And he would look at Donald Trump like he'd look at any other punk.
Don Winslow, the new and final novel is City in Ruins, conclusion of a trilogy. Absolutely read it. Don, such a pleasure. Thank you.
My pleasure. This was really fun. Thanks, Andrew.